media affiliate platforms across the country, also on 3news.com. We're live on Facebook. When you go onto Facebook right now, it's 3FM 927. You get to see all the videos we're going to be streaming on the issues we're going to be talking about here on Hot Edition. I am Alfred Ocansey. Coming up this evening, government condemns purported enskinment of a new Boko Naba as illegal and a threat to national security. We have details from a government release directing security agencies to arrest and prosecute anyone holding himself out as the Boko Naba. Meanwhile, security analyst says the development further complicates the Boko crisis. Bring you details of that. Stay with us here on Hot Edition. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta questions continuous picketing of pensioner bondholder forum at the ministry's premises following the conclusion of government's domestic debt exchange program, describing their stay as unnecessary.
But if you chose not to take the option, we made it clear that we will honor those things. So really, there's no reason for us to be sitting here.
Well, we have details of a near altercation at the ministry today when he addressed the pension bondholders. We'll tell you why they are not happy about the finance minister's latest description of their picketing as unnecessary. We'll tell you the details. Coming up in business, the Lami Show is here.
Well, the finance ministry confuses players in the investment banking space as it claims some investors converted their bonds into treasury bills. We will interrogate the veracity of this claim as we look at the debt exchange results.
Della, thank you. She comes later with all the details in the world of business. Appreciated. The Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, dismisses accusations of interference in the work of the Auditor General following his legal advice to unpublished special audit report on COVID-19. We have details of these and more in the next 60 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Remember, we're live as well on Facebook. It's 3FM 927. Let's get into the details. Now, government has condemned the purported enskinment of a new Boko Naba, describing the move as illegal and a threat to national security. The overlord of the Mamprugu traditional area, Na Buhugu Mahami Abdullahi Sheriga II, on Wednesday, February 15, that's today, enskinned one Alhaji Seidu Abagre as the Boko Naba. Now, the said enskinment took place in the Narerugu area, that's in the northeast region. Government has subsequently issued a statement signed by the Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah condemning the move and describing same as a threat to national security. Now, the statement reiterated government's stance that Naba Asigri Abugrago Azoka II is the Boko Naba, duly gazetted and a member of the National and Upper East Regional Houses of Chiefs. Now, it therefore directed the security agencies to arrest and prosecute any other person who holds himself out as a Boko Naba. Now, it added any development that have the potential in the stand to undermine the peace of Boko will be dealt with swiftly in accordance with the law. Now, just for the uninitiated, let's give you a background of why this is a real serious concern, not only for government, but especially the stakeholders in the Boko area. And later I'll tell you why the members of parliament in the Boko area, the 6 members of parliament, have been addressing the press in parliament about this development. Boko has been embroiled in decades of old chieftaincy dispute with both the Mamprusi and Kusasi factions laying claim to the Boko skin. Now, even though the state recognizes Naba Asigri Abugrago Azoka II as the overlord of the Boko area, the Mamprusis insist it is their right to enskin a chief. Now, this led to unending bloodshed in the area. Security analyst Deep Sani, who spoke to us about this development earlier today, is saying that there is a high possibility of violence spiraling out of control as a result of the enskinment of this viral chief that we're learning right now. That's the development which many security analysts fear it could just be a reality. Take a listen to him.
High, the possibility of violence spiraling out of control as a result of this enskinment is very high, because what it means is we are now going to have 2 parallel authorities in Boko. So even at the point, the Mamprisi chief was a regent. Now they have a substantive chief who is going to rub shoulders with the Kusas chief, who, by the way, has been recognized by government. So we are in a much more complex situation today than it was yesterday. And it's only going to make it more difficult for us to be able to achieve peace in that area.
How complicit is government in all of this? Because you picked intelligence, there were delegations that were sent there by government. How complicit has the state been in trying to deal with this situation? Because it continues to come up every now and then.
Well, it is difficult to say. But what I do know is, and everybody knows, is that government has made it clear that they recognize the Na Abugrago as the legitimate Bokunaba. However, the Mamprisis also claim that no, we are the owners of the land there, okay? And I think government is incapacitated. They are not able to do much beyond just coming out to say on TV and on radio that they recognize Abugrago as the legitimate chief.
Well, that's Adib Sani, but if you go on our Facebook page right now, you'll see that statement, the official statement from the quarters of government signed by Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma on this latest development in the Boko area with the enskinment of this said person, which government says that he is not recognized by the law. Now, that is already generating some disquiet in the area, and we're keeping a close eye on the developments in the Boko municipality. So stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. But let's go into the telephone lines now. And Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, is a former United Nations Development Program UNDP consultant on voluntary civilian disarmament in South Sudan, and then also the UNDP consultant and DDR advisor in South Sudan as well. He's done a lot of work in conflict-prone areas and quite extensive research into the happenings in Boko. Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, thank you so much for joining us on Hot Edition. First of all, find out, I know you've seen this statement from government and how things are playing out. Your position on the government's reaction to what happened earlier today with the enskinment of this individual, which government says he is not recognized by law.
Well, thanks for having me once again. The whole idea is that in matters of this nature, in any conflict environment, prevention is always better than the cure. So rather than the government indicating in its press statement that it is going to deal swiftly with anybody who parades himself as a Bokunaba, that's a reference to the new and skinned Alhaji Seydou Abagri. The government either knew or didn't know. But I find it difficult to imagine that the state did not know that there was going to be an enskinment. So let me err on the side of caution that the state knew. And if indeed the state knew, then the state should have deployed the same measure of force that it is now, threatening to use to have stopped the enskinment from taking place in the first instance. Now that it's taking place, we now have two centers of authority, that's traditional authority, in Boko. But the status quo is a status quo not recognized by government, because the 1992 Constitution was the time when we all agreed that no government can double in chieftaincy matters. So we only need to have recourse to the courts. And this case has been in and out of court for a very long time. The incumbent Bokunaba, Naba Abugrago II, has been on the scheme for over 36 years. Anybody who contests that he is not the rightful occupant of the scheme must have recourse to the courts, especially in this current democratic dispensation. But if you read more, you see that it's been going in and out of the corridors of power and so on and so forth. I think 2001, 2002, 2003, the Mampusis had gone to court contesting, the validity of a certain decision that regularized or put a approval stamp on Naba Abu Grago's occupancy. They went and filed a writ and withdrew their case from court. You see. So
Indeed.
one would have expected that if anybody subsequently has any grievances, they take the matter to court, maybe to seek for a new interpretation. But the Nairi has, on occasion, contested the interpretation of the decision of the Supreme Court. So you can only go back to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to explain its own decision, to your satisfaction. But the situation that we find ourselves in now is that this instability in Boko is going to worsen. Imagine the day, today or whichever day, that the newly enskined Boko Naba arrives in Boko. You see, it's going to generate a lot of tension, more than what we are seeing now. And all along, we've been cautioning that particular area, because of its proximity to terrorism a few miles across the border, is not one that should be allowed to generate deeper into instability. It doesn't help anybody.
And you make a very emphatic statement about the possibility of this leading to the situation we're experiencing in Boko already escalating, and that's where I want to get into. The government has taken a position and made it quite clear in this official statement signed by the Information Minister Kojo Ponkuma, describing the schemement of this new Boko Naba as illegal, and that the national security should arrest anyone who holds himself in that capacity. What's the possible impact of this, the details of this statement, if national security, for instance, is empowered by it and carries out the directive in the statement the government has issued about the situation?
Well, indeed, let's assume that the government will have to fulfill its own, statement. So we should expect that any time, as and when the newly enskined Boko Naba comes to public, that is a new Boko Naba. The police and all other security forces in the Boko area should arrest him. That is what the government is saying.
Absolutely.
But if you have even seen the footage of the enskinment, you see that there is a lot of support for, traditional support for this new Boko Naba. In other words, the state is going to be in conflict with the Mampusis. And that in itself has some serious implications for national security. Because already the security forces, and I've had occasion to argue that in international law, any third party that gets involved in any conflict has become a party to the conflict. And therefore, our security forces, even intervening in the Boko conflict, resulting in fatalities, makes the state a party to the conflict. And when the state now has to ruthlessly deal with the Mampusis, that is going to bring the Mampusis against the state. And of course, the Mampusis might perceive that the government probably is siding with the Kusasis, and that is going to deepen the rift between the Mampusis and the Kusasis. Now, all of this, I've said, must be placed in the context of its proximity to terrorism. But personally, I'm also concerned about the timing of this escalation, that as we get closer to elections in 2024, and next year, God willing, be in the campaigning year, we don't want and we should not contemplate a situation where instability in any part of the country is used as a pretext to stop the people in those areas from casting their vote. We've seen it before, and therefore I think that it will not be far-fetched that this conflict can prolong itself, as indeed it has been doing until we get to the elections. So therefore, bottom line is that the government must deploy all efforts that it can mobilize to try first de-escalate and convince all the parties to abide by the principles of the rule of law. That probably is the best chance. But so far, what the Catholic Bishops' Conference, said, it doesn't look like the government is taking this conflict as serious as it should.
Colonel Festus Abaje, I appreciate your time and your diagnosis of the situation in Boko. Really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Colonel Festus Abaje, retired, is a former United Nations Development Program consultant on voluntary civilian disarmament in South Sudan, and also UNDP consultant on the situation in the northern part of Sudan. In fact, and also written quite extensively about the situation in the Boko area, and because of the development and what we're learning now, the government's position on the newly enskinned Boko Naba. If you've been following here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, here's the development that the overlord of the Mampugu traditional area, Na Bohugu Mahami Abdullahi Sheriga II, today enskinned one Alhaji Seidu Abagre as the Boko Naba. The said enskinment took place in Nalerugu in the northeast region. Now, what's happened subsequently is that government has issued a statement signed by the Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah condemning this enskinment and describing same as a threat to national security. As a matter of fact, if you go on our Facebook page, that's on 3FM 927, you'll see this statement signed by Kojo Nkrumah, the details of it. And then also what we're learning is that the 6 members of parliament in this Boko area have been addressing the press in parliament. The Honorable Cletus Avopka, who is a member of parliament for the Zebila constituency, together with Mahama Ayariga, the Boko Central Member of Parliament, and 4 others, have been addressing the press about this latest development in the Boko area. Take a listen.
Of Kusauk condemn attempts to aggravate the insecurity situation in Boko, dated 15th of February 2023. It has come to the attention of the members of parliament from Boko Central, Zebila, Binduri, Pusga, Timpani, and Garu, who include Honorables Mahama Ayaraga, Cletus Avonka, Abanga Abdullahi, Haji Ladi Ayi Ayamba, Lydia Lamisa Kamvareba, and Honorable Albert Akuko Alazuga, that the Nairi, Na Bohugu Mahami Abdullah Sheriga II has purported to enskin a rival chief for Boko. This is unacceptable and should not come from a person of his stature. Such purported enskinment is null and void and will not be recognized by any institution under the 1992 Constitution. The government of Ghana must take every step to ensure the maintenance of peace and security and hold perpetrators of this criminal act accountable. Meanwhile, the members of parliament for the area call on the people of the Kusauk traditional area and its environs to remain calm and assure them that this unlawful conduct will not stand. We are watching closely the level of political will of the government of President Nana Akufo-Addo and Vice President Alhaji Mahmudu Bawumia in respecting the Constitution of Ghana and the right of the Kusasi people to rule over their own land and to have their independence. The Zugrana Naba Asigri Aborago Azoka II, who is the Boku Naba and president of the Kusau Traditional Council, remains the only recognized paramount chief of the Kusau Traditional Area as recognized by law. The conduct of the Nairi has the potential to aggravate the already precarious security situation in Boku, and this must be resisted. Ladies and gentlemen, let me add by saying that the current Boku Naba, Zugrana Abguraga Azoka II, who is also the president of the Traditional Council, was enskinned in 1984, as far back as 1984. They have been registered at the Traditional Council, the Upper East Regional House of Chiefs, the National House of Chiefs, and gazetted. Currently, he is a member of the National House of Chiefs for the past 5 years. And therefore, we find today's exercise very unfortunate and it must be nipped in the bud. We thank you so much as we pray for peace in Boku and Madagascar. Thank you.
So that's the Honorable Cletus Avoka, flanked by the Honorable Member of Parliament for Boko Central, Mama Yarga, the Binduri Member of Parliament, the Posiga MP, the Timpani MP, the Garu Member of Parliament as well. All 6 make up the MPs in the constituencies in Boko, the Boko municipality, who their position is actually consistent with the details of the statement by government on the development today. And it reads, the government condemns development in Nalerugu today, February 15, 2023, concerning the purported enskinment of a new Boko Naba as illegal and a threat to national security. Government further reiterates that Naba Asigri Abugrago Azoka II is a Boko Naba, duly gazetted and a member of the National and Upper East Regional Houses of Chiefs. As the security agencies have therefore been directed to arrest and prosecute any other person who holds himself out as a Boko Naba. Further, any developments that have the potential to undermine the peace of Boko will also be dealt with swiftly and in accordance with the law. So that's the development from government, the statement issued by Kojo Ponkoma on the developments in Boko.
But if you chose not to take the option, we made it clear that we will honor those things. So really, there's no reason for us to be sitting here.
Well, those were the words of Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta to the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, who today is the 8th day of their picketing at the ministries, that's the Finance Ministry's premises, demanding their total exclusion from the ended domestic debt exchange program. The pensioners have for the last 8 days as working days marched up at the ministry insisting on their exclusion from the domestic debt exchange program despite the period for the participation in the DDE ending on Friday. Government yesterday in a statement further announcing an end to the domestic debt exchange program stressed it would honor all outstanding bonds whether or not they agreed to the domestic debt exchange program. Now, that, however, has failed to send any sense of assurances to the pensioners who have been picketing over the period. In fact, an attempt by the minister to address them and their concerns today resulted in some confrontation when the convener of the Fix the Country movement, Oliver Baka-Vomawo, questioned the minister during his address. Take a listen.
Tensions are high. The possibility of tensions are high. The possibility of violence spiraling.
But if you chose not to take the option, we made it clear that we will honor those things. So really, there's no reason for us to be sitting here. But if you chose not to take the option, we made it clear that we will honor those things. So really, there's no reason for us to be sitting here.
So that's the finance minister and what transpired earlier today. We'll bring you the details of that incident that happened earlier today at the premises of the finance ministry. But Dr. Edouard Anienchi, who's the convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, is going to be joining us on the telephone shortly on this development and why they have been picketing even after the domestic debt exchange program has ended, and what exactly they are demanding of or from the finance minister after the domestic debt exchange program has ended. And today they were at the premises of the finance ministry. In fact, this statement from the finance minister rather got them agitated, and saying that that's the finance minister has no sense of appreciation of their plight and reason why he makes the statement. Shortly, Dr. Edouard Anienchi will be joining us on the telephone. But as you do know now, the inflation has dropped to 53.6%. And that's figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service, revealing that the month of January 2023, inflation dropped to 53.6% from 54.1% recorded in December 2022. Now, this means that in the month of January 2023, the general price levels was 53.6, higher than in January 2022. The month-on-month inflation between December 2022 and January 2023 was about 1.7%. Essentially, this was expected because of the impact of the cedi that stabilized quite relatively against the dollar for most part of the last quarter of 2022, and the replica effect that it has also in the first quarter of 2023. But the many concerns is that this does not make any significant difference in the lives of the Ghanaian people, especially because of the increased prices of goods and services still on the market. There hasn't been any real reduction that has any significant impact on the pockets of the Ghanaian people. And that's been the reaction to this announcement of the inflation rate reducing. Also, international rating agency Fitch has downgraded Ghana's creditworthiness to further junk status. In its latest report on Ghana, it said Fitch Ratings downgraded Ghana's long-term local currency issuer default rating, that's the ITR, to restricted default, that's RD, from C. It attributed the downgrade to the decision by government to embark on the debt exchange program and the recent default on local bonds that matured on February 6, 2023, and another one which is due for payment this week. Now, the downgrade, according to Fitch, of Ghana's local currency denominated debt follows the completion of this domestic debt exchange program offered by the Republic of Ghana. Now, this transaction is an element of the recovery program for which the government is seeking the support of the International Monetary Fund for a 3-year extended credit facility of about $3 billion. Fitch also affirmed Ghana's long-term foreign currency, that's the FCA IDR at C, indicating that it typically does not assign rating outlooks to sovereigns with a rating of CCC plus or below. Now, here's what's happened with the foreign currency debt not being affected. Now, Fitch downgraded the long-term foreign currency issuer default to C from CC on December 21, 2022, if you recall, following the government's announcement of a suspension of payment on selected external debt. Now, Ghana subsequently asked official creditors for a restructuring of the external debt under the G20 Common Framework. A Eurobond coupon payment, which was due on January 18, 2023, has not been paid. That's coupled with the bonds that matured last week, Monday, that's the 6th of February, that have also not been paid. And that's the reason why lawyer Martin Pebo and his team have also notified the Ghana Police Service that they are going to picket at the premises of the Finance Ministry next Monday. So that's the development as well, and something that we're keeping a close eye on how things will play out on Monday. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Facebook. That is 3FM 927 on Facebook. Also live all across the country on our various affiliates. Your thoughts coming in. It's on 29 minutes to the top of the hour, 6 o'clock. If you just joined us, we've been updating you on the situation in Boko, where we're learning that a new Boko Naba has been enskined, which has got a lot of the security analysts worried, including government, as well, because of this statement that's just come through from Kojo Ponkoma, Information Minister, on the overlord of the Mamprogo traditional area, now Bohugu Mahami Abdullahi Sheriga II, said to have enskined one Alhaji Seydou Abagri as a Boko Naba, which not just government, but the members of parliament in the area have condemned this particular development. So that is the situation there, which we're keeping a close eye on, and we'll be updating you as to how things play out here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Now, Attorney General Godfred Adame has dismissed claims that his advice to the Auditor General amounts to an interference with the independence of the institution. Mr. Adame had earlier urged the Auditor General to unpublish his audit findings into the use of the COVID-19 funds. Now, he pointed out the report ought not to be published till Parliament's Public Accounts Committee probes the matter. Our pressure group Occupy Ghana, the think tank Center for Democratic Development, CDD, and the opposition NDC have all questioned the Attorney General's concern, describing it as contrary to the law. Mr. Adame has been arguing his advice is consistent with the law. Now, there's a statement, quite a long one, that he's issued justifying his position on this matter. And he makes reference to certain comments that were made by the CDD, and he says, one, that contrary to the strange view, and I quote from the statement, he described as a strange view of CDD, the letter and spirit of the laws governing the work of the Auditor General make him part of the audit service of Ghana, and therefore a regular member of the public services of Ghana, to whom the Attorney General can give advice pursuant to his mandate under Article 88 of the Constitution. Now, Article 1892 of the 1992 Constitution provides a clue when it stipulates, thus, quote, the appointment of officers and other employees in the audit service other than the Auditor General shall be made by the Audit Service Board, acting in consultation with the Public Services Commission. This provision deals with the appointment of officers and all employees in the audit service, including the Auditor General, and clearly provides that, with the exception of the Auditor General, all have to be appointed by the Audit Service Board, acting in consultation with the Public Services Commission. With a clear cue provided by Article 1892, a contention that the Auditor General is not part of the audit service or a member of the Public Services Board is pointless and absurd. 2. Section 2 of the Audit Service Act 2005-84 lays the issue to rest when it lists the Auditor General as the first member of the audit service in these terms. Quote, the members of the audit service are A, the Auditor General, and B, the other persons employed in the service. It is thus, according to the Attorney General, clear that the propositions of CDD Ghana and its board members can only result from an inadequate reading of the laws of Ghana, including the Constitution and the Audit Service Act. He also asks a question whether the Attorney General can advise a member of Public Services of Ghana, including the Auditor General, and he goes to answer himself. That's the Attorney General provides an answer to the question he's asking in his own statement. It says that it is astonishing that the CDD Ghana disputes the propriety of the Attorney General rendering legal advice to the Auditor General and construes same as interference with the independence of the Auditor General. A proper reading of the Constitution, especially the provisions of the Public Services of Ghana, leads to the inescapable conclusion that the Attorney General is fully vested with the constitutional function of giving legal advice to all the public services specifically listed in Article 1901 of the Constitution, including the audit service and such other public services as will be established by law. Now, Article 295 of the Constitution indicates that the public services listed in Article 190 and other public services established by Parliament pursuant to its legislative powers are part of the civil offices of Ghana. In the face of the explicit constitutional mandate of the Attorney General under Article 88 of the Constitution as principal legal advisor to the government, it is incomprehensible and rather illogical how an assertion may be made that the Attorney General has no capacity to render legal advice to the Auditor General. Such an assertion, according to the Attorney General, can only be as a result of a simplistic and limited view of relevant provisions of the Constitution of Ghana. Adam Senanu is co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Is going to be joining us shortly on this matter, and some other the civil society organizations that have also been raising questions and concerns about the position put together by the Attorney General on this matter. Stay with us. We'll give you details of these and more here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're getting to sports quickly, and Ore Kwampofo is standing by, and we'll give you quick updates in the world of sports, and then we'll connect with the society organizations raising concerns about the Auditor General's, that's Attorney General's position on the publishing of the COVID-19 audit by the Auditor General. Riku, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Great.
Good.
What's in the world of sports today?
So it has to do with Arsenal. They play Manchester City later tonight, and it's a really big game that Arsenal fans are looking forward to, and is one that is top of the table. Whoever wins this would be essentially deciding the title and who would be running away with it. But there is some bad news coming from the Arsenal camp, one that a lot of Arsenal fans don't want to hear.
I'm reading that Thomas Partey is not going to play.
Yeah, exactly that. And
I see.
We're hearing that
good news for us.
It's
not bad news at all.
It's a muscle issue, and so he hasn't made a trip, and he's not part of the squad.
If you're a Man City fan, it's good news.
Yeah, if you're a Man City fan, it's good news. It's good news. But let's try and get some perspective from the Arsenal end. Spoke to my colleague Bill Sean, who is assessing what the impact could be on Arsenal tonight when they face Manchester City without Partey.
The absence of Partey is a really, really big blow to Arsenal because, of course, in the 18 Premier League games that he's played this season, Arsenal have won 83% of them. So he is very, very important to the way the team plays. But now Arteta has to look to Jorginho to replace the Ghanaian, and it is a very big test for Jorginho. And if he's able to pass it and Arsenal find a way somehow to win it, then it will be a masterstroke by Mikel Arteta. But without Partey, it's going to be so difficult for Arsenal to get a result against Man City, because he brings that kind of control that not many people bring in this world today as a defensive midfielder. So it should be a really, really tough one for the Gunners.
Well, despite Partey being absent tonight, Pep Guardiola still expects a tough environment when they face Arsenal. The Spanish coach has never lost at the Emirates whilst managing Manchester City.
We know how the environment will be, I think so, after what happened in recent last weeks, and the quality of the opponent, the tough he's going to do, the pace, they control many aspects really well.
Let's still stay in Europe and talk about the Champions League because ahead of Chelsea's round of 16 clash with Borussia Dortmund in Germany, former Chelsea player Gianfranco Zola believes the club can still find success even without an out-and-out number 9.
I mean, you can play and win things without number 9. 2 years ago, they won the Champions League, and he was playing with Kai, he was playing also Werner, and another number 10. Sometimes Mason, sometimes somebody else, Ziyech or whatever. And they were very successful. I think you can be successful also playing without strikers. Manchester City teaches us a very good lesson in this sense. You can win in different ways. The point is that, you play without strikers, but if you do that, then you have to create a system in which you get those so good players in dangerous area where their abilities can be really, really dangerous.
So big games to look forward to. There would also be Real Madrid facing Elche, and then other Champions League games where there was Ghanaian interest, whilst there's Kamal Sowa, Dennis Odoi representing Club Brugge whilst they welcome Benfica. But let's come back to Ghana, because after 17 games, the first round of the Ghana Premier League is officially over. Accra Lions have been one of the surprise packages in the league this season and currently sit 5th in the league with 27 points. Head coach of the side, Ibrahim Tanko, looks back on what has been an incredible first round so far.
Did very well. We have a very young team, as you know, and this is the second year in the Premier League. Yeah, after 17 games, 28 points, I think it's not bad for a young team like us. And I mean, we learned from the last season, and we had a couple of experienced players among us, and definitely the boys also are determined to, I mean, their second year to make an impact, and I think they did very well also.
Well, that was Ibrahim Tanko, who's the coach of Accra Lions. But from one coach in the Ghana Premier League, let's move to the other. And Dreams FC coach Karim Zito admits that taking over from previous coach Ignatius Fosuse has been tough. The Still Believe boys sit 10th in the table so far, and Zito believes the transition could have been a bit easier if he was in charge for pre-season.
It wasn't easy because it's always difficult when you are not the very person who starts with the preseason. So when along the line, when you are called to come and then take, unless you use the experience you had to be able to manage them, because already in case maybe after observation their physical ability is down, how are you going to go about it during the season? That is where the experience counts. So it wasn't easy, and then the cycling of the boys. Now that I'm even lucky, I'm with them all the time. It's like, yes, they know my ability and capability as coach. So I went into their cycling, and then I brought the attitude back.
Well, there's more of the Karim Zito and Ibrahim Tanko interviews on GPR Express later on TV3 with Kelvin Owusu-Ansah at 9:30 p.m. tonight. My name is Oreko Ampofo, and that's your sports for now.
Oreko, thank you so much. And I know you're going to be doing a lot of updates on the Man City Arsenal match on 3 Sports.
Yeah, the Twitter page.
Yeah, Twitter page. So we're going to be following. Let's get into business now. And Dela Michelle is standing by with all the news in the world of business. Let's get into it.
And let's now get into the stories. Let's begin with Parliament, as 2 prominent professors of finance have chided Parliament for the handling of the domestic debt exchange program. The professors, in separate interviews, said Parliament has failed the people. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected in Parliament on Thursday to answer questions on the debt exchange program, but many, including some members of Parliament, are doubtful if any or if even the presence of the minister will make any difference since the program has been concluded. The domestic debt exchange program has created anxiety among businesses and individuals alike, but it has also created a strong feeling that Parliament failed Ghanaians by not giving the program the needed priority. Weeks after its rollout and days after its conclusion, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is now expected to appear before Parliament on Thursday, February 16, after an earlier date, February 14, was announced. For academics who have been following up on the conversation since its inception, they are of the view that Parliament should have been recalled from recess and summoned the Finance Minister much earlier. John Gachi is a professor of finance at the University of Cape Coast Business School.
Parliament was looking on, seeing pensioners picketing over a number of days, some having exchanges with the minister. Nothing was heard. It was just last week or so that Parliament said they are calling the minister to come.
His position is backed by Professor of Finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Godfred Bobkin, who did not hide his displeasure at how Parliament has handled the debt exchange issues.
I think Parliament failed Ghanaians, and we need to say it as it is. As the representatives of the people, a major economic intervention like this, the Parliament, the majority leader, and leadership of Parliament a couple of months ago said that they didn't know the details. No, come on. What is going on?
It even appears members of parliament themselves concede they have done a bad job.
Indeed, he could have come last week because here was, I don't know what preparations he needed further before coming, because here was the finance minister who issued a 67-page memorandum on the debt exchange program.
He disregarded the directive of parliament and went ahead to do what he's doing. And two, the postponement of such schedules, he did it deliberately because knowing very well that once he comes to parliament, parliament may give some directives. He has gone ahead to make the statement he has made. And I think that I expect Mr. Speaker to take action.
Ghanaians will be watching closely proceedings in Parliament when Finance Minister comes before the House. But would anything significant come out of this engagement? Or would we see the usual partisan politics at play again? Time will tell. And indeed, you need to stay with the business team as we'll be monitoring this particular development, especially as Finance Minister makes his way to Parliament on Thursday, February 16. Let's do more stories as it appears those who refuse to sign onto the domestic debt exchange program have gotten themselves a better deal. Their bonds will give them a higher return compared to the newer yet to be eluted bonds. There's more in the following report by my colleague Manuafo.
The sudden change in the value of the bonds to be restructured as
According to the latest release on the results of the domestic debt exchange program, the outstanding principal on the 5-year bond amounts to some 3.7 billion cedis. Of this amount, 3.34 billion cedis worth of the bond was tendered in as part of the debt exchange. This should be the bonds held by those who submitted to the debt exchange. This means the only principal that the government needs to honor is about 364 million cedis held by investors who refused to sign on. This is chicken feed for the government, and many expect the government to pay the investors holding on to the old bonds. However, these investors may have to wait a bit longer because the Finance Ministry has extended the settlement date for the new bonds from the previously announced 14th February 2023 to 21st February 2023.
Let's still stay on bonds as the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Reverend Daniel Obami-Tete, may have to explain under what circumstances investors were able to convert their bonds into treasury bills. Finance Minister, in explaining how the eligible bonds reduced from 137 billion, Finance Minister cedis to 97 billion cedis, said some persons who had bonds converted them into treasury bills following the announcement of the exchange program. The statement, however, did not state which category of investors and under what circumstances or terms did they convert bonds which are long-term instruments into treasury bills which are short-term. Well, my colleague Sani Abdul Rahman has been interrogating the issues and has come through with this report.
The sudden change in the value of the bonds to be restructured has surprised market watchers, but the explanation that some investors converted long-term bonds into treasury bills, which are short-term, is more confusing. Questions are being raised about how much of the bonds were converted into T-bills, which category of bondholders did the conversion, and whether any investor could just have decided to convert their bonds into T-bills. If this window were allowed, no bondholder would have chosen the debt exchange over this short-term approach, which appears easier. It's a bit confusing because while the government has said paying an 18% coupon is difficult, but has allowed investors to convert their bonds to get 35%. So many questions.
And that's all the business news we have for you. And log on to 3news.com. There's more business news. My name is Della Michelle Alfred.
Della, are you ready for a reduction in fuel prices?
I am. Look, I've been buying fuel prices at ridiculous prices now.
You,
and if there's going to be a way for us to cushion, hopefully this one stays. Hopefully it stays for long.
Hopefully that
for 3 months.
The projected reduction will be what it is. You know.
It should be.
Absolutely. And let's go on to the telephone now. Duncan Amoah is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC. Duncan, thank you so much for joining us on Hot Edition.
Thank you for having me, Alfred. Thank you.
There's a projected reduction in the prices of fuel, that's petroleum products, at the second pricing window, which begins tomorrow. How is the window looking like?
So, Alfred, there are two things here.
petrol diesel likely to go down, LPG likely to go up slightly or remain stable. But what we are picking with the market now is that it could go up slightly, maybe 1-2% within the window. But for petrol diesel, you are looking at between 3 and 5% reduction for both products. What that means is that you are likely to have petrol sell for around 14 cedi 80 pesos, whilst diesel could possibly also go for around 14 cedi 90 pesos for the second window in February. This is simply international market price movement together with a stability in your currency over the past 2-week period. This is what you are probably seeing following from a better management of your currency.
I see. So the petrol is going to drop from 15 cedis 30, 15 cedis 50 pesos to 14 cedis 80 pesos. And then diesel will drop to 14 cedis 90 pesos. How sure are we? Yeah, how sure are we that we as consumers are going to enjoy this, especially because of what we've experienced in the last pricing windows, where you predict a reduction of a particular margin, but then the oil marketing companies give us lesser than what we deserve or what you predicted?
Alfred, you have a situation where there are competing needs on the market. Sometimes you would have a situation where government is hoping that the OMCs would do a certain bit, where COPEC, the consumer body, is also hoping that reductions would follow a certain trend. But eventually, the OMCs, due to the fact that they have a right to set their own prices, sometimes do not match up that expectation. These reductions that we are expecting tomorrow are quite nominal. It will be shocking if any of them decide that we wouldn't reduce prices and we will continue to sell at, higher market values. What the danger portends for those oil marketing companies, they should learn from what Star Oil has been able to do over the short period that it has been very price sensitive to the Ghanaian public. You go out there, others are around 14, 10, 12. Star Oil would probably give you a very fair market price, which has seen it move now to become the second largest OMC by way of market share. And so we think that the other OMCs will simply pick a queue. Those numbers, if you need to add 1 plus 1, the pricing formula is cast in stone. The taxes are known. The only bit that OMC sometimes get to play within has to do with their own margins. And so if you have a situation where OMCs would at this point decide that when prices are to come down, they would rather increase margins and not reduce, the likes of Star Oil, the likes of Allied, the likes of Petrosol are likely to cash in because the market is watching, and we are certain that those who also reduce prices will come back to you with that information in order that the public are advised accordingly.
And then quickly, this in 30 seconds. Is this expected reduction have anything to do with the Gold for Oil program?
Alfred, let me place on record that we do not support Gold for Oil in any way, shape, or form. We have in recent times had BOS engaged in fuels trading. At the time that it was even operating with what you would call an open credit, that meant you didn't have to spend anything on financing to be able to land product. We still had a situation BOS ended up with about 600 million USD losses as was reported. Now you have a situation where we are going to Bank of Ghana to take gold resources or to take the cash, equivalent, and assign to BOS to bring products to now compete with the market with the view to selling cheaper. Alfred, unfortunately, you and I will not be given the product any cheaper. Losses may be accumulated. At the end of the day, you and I will be called upon to, at a later date, just like the COVID freebies that you and I were probably given, for which today you have to pay for, you are given 1 peso by government. Bear in mind that he comes back to take 100 Ghana cedi later because of a certain loss that occurred. Nobody has asked government to get into the fuel trading space because it is a very dangerous area. You can either make profit or loss. Breaking even, not likely.
Okay.
But if losses do occur, Alfred, they will come back to the same suffering public to add more taxes. We are saying let them discontinue.
Duncan, thank you so much. Duncan Amor is the Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC. Akofa is here with Entertainment News.
Yes, now coming up on entertainment this evening, Board Chairman of Ghana Music Rights Organization, Rex Omar, says it's not true Ghanaians don't support their own. And on the international front, musician Pharrell Williams named Louis Vuitton Creative Director. My name is Akofa, and now the stories. Veteran High Life singer and Board Chairman of Ghana Music Rights Organization, Rex Omar, believes that the narrative Ghanaians don't support their own should not be encouraged, since there are bad nuts in every group who undermine the positive agenda of a larger group. Speaking in an interview recently, he mentioned that even though he agrees that Ghanaian artists cannot have all-round support, the support of Ghanaians for creative talents has never been in doubt. Rex Omar encouraged artists to offer their best when they find themselves on any reputable global platform, since such opportunities are rare. He said, quote, "Before the period of digital and technical growth, it was just you, your craft and your country. But now we live in what we like to call a global village. So use every platform you have to communicate your craft well so that the larger community can enjoy it and your culture as well," he added. Now to our next story. Louis Vuitton, one of the world's leading international fashion houses, have named Grammy-winning producer, rapper, singer and songwriter Pharrell Williams as its new menswear creative director. The label described Williams as a visionary whose creative universes expand from music to art and to fashion. He's also the co-founder of the streetwear brand Billionaire Boys Club. The Louis Vuitton role was previously held by high-profile designer Virgil Abloh, who died in 2021. Williams' first collection for the label will be shown at the Men's Fashion Week in Paris in June. And that's all for entertainment. My name is Akofa. Alfred, over to you.
Well, there's wind down tonight, isn't it?
Yes, there is post-Valentine celebration.
Post-Valentine.
And we're coming your way with some cool numbers. So yes, you might want to stick and stay with us.
I say numbers. You mean like cool hits and music?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Great stuff. So will you be taking like stories of how people celebrated their Valentine?
I won't ask them to send. If they do send, I'll definitely share with you out there. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, wow. But there's some good news for you out there. If obviously either you drive or you join public transport, the price of petrol and diesel are expected to drop significantly between 3 and 7% at the pumps from tomorrow, February 16, 2023, I beg your pardon, which is the beginning of the second pricing window in the month of February. However, LPG will go up by some 1%. That's what we understand is going to be happening. So let us know when there's a reduction at the pumps where you buy fuel. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Join us same time tomorrow. Stay with us. Giovanni and DJ Faculty continue.